dig in and recognize how important this is. Because if we lose this election, America will chart a leftist course like Venezuela.
What do we need to do to fight back against this?
People need to take advantage of the Second Amendment. Where police are defunded, you call 911, it may be that no one's coming. You got to get a gun. You got to learn how to use it. Do what you have to do, but you need to protect yourself and your family. It is a different world. But then again, this is America. We were born of a revolution. We have it in our DNA to fight. We have it in our DNA to save this country. But we've got to open our eyes and recognize this isn't just a Black Lives Matter, because there isn't one person in this country that I've met who thought that the killing of George Floyd was acceptable. It was murder. And I'd love to prosecute those cops. And I have prosecuted white cops for killing black men. I've prosecuted them, okay? So nobody thinks that that was right. But you're taking this in another direction. And I don't know who you are, and I don't know who's funding you. But what I do know is I love this country. You can't take it from us. And the only thing we've got to do is protect ourselves, our family, and stand up to the outrage that's going on. And the voting booth is the way to do it.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Judge Jeanine Pirro, the award-winning broadcaster, author, former district attorney, and highly respected judge. You are the host of Justice with Judge Jeanine on Fox News, and for 3 years hosted the Emmy award-winning show Judge Jeanine Pirro. You also regularly appear as a judicial commentator on Good Morning America, 60 Minutes, and CNN. In 2016, you fiercely campaigned for Donald Trump's election and have described the president as, quote unquote, almost superhuman. You routinely rally against the extreme leftist agenda in America, who you suggest are working to remove individual liberty. Your upcoming book, Don't Lie to Me and Stop Trying to Steal Our Freedom, examines the president's impeachment inquiry, the state of the U.S. military, and the road to the 2020 presidential election. Judge Jeanine, welcome to London Real.
Well, it's great to be with you, Brian. And I must tell you, we're delighted that you are still out there doing your thing, because I've read a little bit about you as well. And, we have all faced a certain amount of censorship in what we do. And I'm very proud of you that you've survived, and not just survived, but are thriving. So we're very proud of you as well.
Well, thanks so much, Judge. I appreciate that. And on that same note, I just want to announce to everybody that we are streaming this on our brand new Digital Freedom Platform, which is a censorship-free, independent broadcasting system that is of the people, by the people, for the people. And it's available exclusively on our website at freedomplatform.tv. I just want to request that everyone watching now, please share this link via the sidebar to any and all of your social media channels. Let me repeat that. Can everybody watching now please share the link via the sidebar to all of your social media channels? This is important. I always ask, ask your friends and family to give us 15 minutes and they can decide. Judge, I pledge to you and everyone watching us that none of this conversation will be edited, censored, removed, or banned, and that anybody in the world can watch the full version of this free at freedomplatform.tv/Judge Jeanine. Thanks to the generous donations of over 34,000 people around the world, we affectionately call the London Real Army. For anybody wanting to become a founding member of the Digital Freedom Platform, they can visit freedomplatform.tv/give to donate and fight with us on the front lines to protect our human rights. Here at London Real, we've been a platform for free speech since 2011. And Judge, I'm super excited to have you here today. So much I want to talk to you about, from the lawlessness going on in our streets, to the COVID-19 response, to the cancel culture of the left, to the deterioration of our freedom of speech, both in person and digitally. But, you know, all of this seems to be weaponized or being weaponized against one person, and that's Donald Trump. And, you know, you recently came out on your show saying we've got 100 days left to make one of the most important decisions in America, in the world. But you knew him way before he became president. And I'm wondering, maybe we start with that. I mean, you know the man behind the office. What's he like as a person? And what have you seen him become, you know, now that he's been in the spotlight and has had so many battles to fight?
You know, I met, Brian, I met Donald Trump about 30 years ago. My then husband was one of his lawyers as he was doing real estate development throughout New York. And I remember Donald Trump, the first time he called, I was the sitting DA in Westchester County, and he would call at all hours. I mean, I knew 30 years ago the man never slept because he was always working, and he was always a very charming, kind man, you know, and he was very complimentary. I mean, there was never any of this, you know, the caricature that people see and hear about now. And we became friendly, and my husband and my young children at the time, we used to fly down to Palm Beach with him every weekend during the season because we had a house down there and he had, of course, Mar-a-Lago down there. And he had a little table on the jet for my children, and he would put like a leather cover on it. He said, "This is for Kiki and Alex, my children who are now grown." And the leather cover was because my son was always pounding things on the table. And we would walk down the street with Donald Trump in Manhattan. And everyone loved him back then. If it was a hard hat or a police officer, he would stop. He would talk to them. They would say, "Please, you know, we love you. You're great," having nothing to do with politics. This was a long time ago. When we'd go to a restaurant, he would always go into the kitchen and, you know, take care of everyone in the kitchen, thank them. This was not politically driven. This is who the guy is. And his generosity is unknown to so many people. He'd hear that someone had cancer, he would help them out. He would fly them somewhere. He would get hotels. And I've written a few political books, Liars, Leakers, and Liberals. And I think I talk about, you know, some of the generous and charitable things he's done. And I also did Radicals, Resistance, and Revenge before the one that's coming out, Don't Lie to Me. And I talk about a lot of this in the book. He was charming, he was kind, he was generous. And he's Donald Trump, and they loved him, Brian. They loved him. He had a cameo on everything. Everyone in the movies, in theater, in the music industry, in the gaming industry, he was the shining star. And then he made the decision to run for president as a Republican. Everything did a 180 at that point. Then he became this despicable, horrible human being, which shows you how really shallow the same people are who loved him and wanted to be part of his life, wanted him to be part of their shows or whatever they had going on. And then he had the audacity to run as a Republican, and they hated him. And what we're seeing going on today, Brian, is the epitome of an effort on the part of the left to destroy this man. But I want to go back to one more thing. I want to talk about Donald and his children. When his children were younger, and I knew them when they were very little, you know, I remember sitting on the plane and he would say, "Okay, when we land, we're going to go to," I think it was Kmart then, to buy school supplies. And I'm sitting there on the plane and I'm probably reading something and I'm saying to myself, "Jeanine, Donald Trump just said he's going to Kmart to buy school supplies." Or he would say to one of them, if they got, you know, mean to the other kid, he'd say, "You just lost your allowance." And I thought to myself, he teaches these kids about, you know, and they have consequences if they don't behave the way he wants them to. He's a good man. He's a good man in his soul. And that's a Donald that I have known and absolutely adored for many, many years. And that's why I fight so hard for him. Forget about all the fantastic stuff that he's done in this country. I know the man. He's a good man.
Yeah, I've heard him, you know, in a couple interviews recently, and I think he said the night he announced his candidacy, him and Melanie were arriving someplace, and she said, "I hear booze. I've never heard booze before." And he said that was the kind of start of this. He said before he ran for office, he was in 79 rap songs. hip hop songs because, like you said, he was part of American culture, wasn't he? He was kind of this guy that people would look up to. But like you said, he was still kind of an everyman, even though he's in the Trump Tower. It was a weird mix. And then I guess when he ran for office, and you're saying as a Republican, then it was time for the left to tear him down. And that's what we've witnessed for the past 4 years.
Right. And he lost the cultural icon status. And in one of my books, I talked about all of the newspapers who just fawned over him. And it was a 180 within like a month. It was like, oh, this is horrible. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's a horrible human being. And it just shows you, the effort on the part of the left. And we didn't know it, Brian. We didn't understand it 4 years ago. We said, oh, they're just hypocrites. Okay, it's Hollywood. They're hypocrites. It's the media. But now, as we look back on it, we realize it is a dug-in, leftist, globalist issue to destroy what he represents, which is make America great, a capitalist free enterprise system where there is personal accountability and responsibility and freedom that goes along with it. They hate that. And, 4 years ago, Brian, I remember when Bernie Sanders was in the Democrat, group, I call him the Democrat clown car, trying to get the nomination to run for president as a Democrat. He said, I am a Democrat socialist. And everybody went, oh, a socialist. 3 years later, it's like everybody's cool with it. Hey, socialism's great. You ask the millennials, oh, it's great. They don't know the first thing about socialism, but it's great. And my point in telling you that, Brian, is to show you how quickly America has turned, how the brainwashing, the indoctrination, and not just in America, you could educate me, I'm sure, about the rest of the world.
Yeah, and it's strange you make these characterizations of Donald because I've spoken with everyone from Charlie Kirk to Dave Rubin to George Farmer on Friday, who's Candace Owens' husband, and they've all said he's the opposite of what the media say. They say he's fun, he's humble, he's really smart, he plans ahead. He's just not what they characterize him to be. But like you said, this has been their agenda, and it's just gone so far. I'm from San Diego, California, and I'm looking at pictures. I lived in New York City for 4 years. I'm looking at pictures of the West Coast and the East Coast, and I mean, I don't even think I could live in America right now because I don't think I could even understand being in that place. I mean, how bad has it gotten to be in that country?
I live in Westchester County, Brian, and for your viewers and listeners, it's considered a very affluent suburban community to New York City. About 3 weeks ago, I was sitting in my backyard and I heard the footsteps and I heard the bullhorns and I heard all of the chaos on the street. I live on 2 acres right behind my house. And I said, it's coming. And that's why I said this weekend, it's coming to your city. I don't care what town, village, or city you live in, it is coming. And this kind of thing never happened in Westchester. Remember, I was an official in this county for 30 years between, DA, judge. I was, I had the pulse. I knew what was going on. And what's going on in New York City is with the leftist mayor, Bill de Blasio, and this whole defund the police movement, they have literally tied the hands of law enforcement. They are threatening to prosecute cops when they make arrests, and I'll go back to that in a second. And what they're doing is telling them to stand down. So when there were these peaceful protests, that it's just an oxymoron. It's just ridiculous. But the police were told to stand down when they were looting Fifth Avenue, not to make an arrest, and they purposely, and I speak to very high-level people in the NYPD, they purposely were told send very few people there and do not make arrests. When the police did make arrests, I got a copy of an internal memo from the Manhattan District Attorney, and it told his assistant DAs that what they should do is ACD or dismiss the protest arrests, but to look for any police brutality. And that meant to look at those people arrested and speak to them about whether or not they felt they were brutalized. And the priority then turned around to the police who were making the arrest were now the targets and the suspects. And if you follow the thinking through, Brian, then what they're saying is we'll prosecute, clearly, the cops, and will give the defendants, the arrestees, the right to then sue for police brutality, the taxpayers will end up paying the defendants who were arrested because they've been, brutalized by the cops, and all the stores that were emptied out and looted, they're just on their own. Nobody protected the stores. Nobody's looking to reimburse them in any way. And yet the looters are going to walk away with a bag full of money. It's incomprehensible. And every night we're seeing not just the looters and Black Lives Matter, but we're seeing crime because you've got 37 cops in New York City. Every one of them has a gun. They have not been trained on how to effectuate an arrest. They've just been told, as a result of a new law passed by the New York City Council, they cannot touch on the neck, they cannot touch on the diaphragm, they cannot touch here, cannot touch there. And if they do so, they will be prosecuted. So the police don't know how to make an arrest. They're not making arrests as a result.
And that's why we've seen the crime jump, the shootings jump. I mean, the numbers I hear, it's just hard to believe. And they've already defunded the police budget by $1 billion. And is it true?
$1.5 billion. $1.5 billion.
And 700 officers have retired recently?
It's 800 now. 800. Brian, they had to limit the number of officers trying to retire. They've got a bullseye on their back, and they know it. And they are subject to prosecution. They're subject to being maimed and being killed. This is not a job that you want right now. 3 law enforcement agents in I think it was Portland had lasers pointed at their eyes just a few days ago. They are likely permanently blind by these anarchists and by these looters. And you say to yourself, where did they come from? Does this happen that quickly? I don't think so. And, as a prosecutor, I've never believed in coincidence. But when you've got these young looters who, during a pandemic, have access to bricks and all kinds of pallets of concrete and bricks and rocks, where did that show up from? No one was building anything, and they're destroying buildings. That's being provided to them, Brian. There is a bigger umbrella over all of this. This isn't just a few young people who said we can't take it anymore. This is an orchestrated, organized effort to take down the United States government and Donald Trump.
Are you thinking names like George Soros funding this event? Or are we talking about potentially Russia, China, bigger players?
Well, the Attorney General, Bill Barr, came out and said that it was not just Antifa, but there were foreign actors involved. Certainly people are looking at all the people that you've mentioned, but you've got to have evidence. And clearly you have to look at those people. Proving it is another issue. But, I remember I was in a hotel at the Million Mom March, or the day that Donald Trump was inaugurated in Washington, D.C. I was there for the inauguration festivities. And I remember being in an elevator with a couple of people, and there was a SEAL who was assigned to protect me. And there was a young kid who said, "Hey, you used to be the DA." And I asked him where he lived, and he told me where he lived. And he and his friends and his mother were there. And I said, "Oh, how are you doing?" He said, "Oh, we're loving it. We're having a great time. We're going to be here all week." And I thought to myself, this hotel is $700 a night. Based on where he told me where he lived, and the way he and his friends and his mother were dressed, somebody else was paying for that, Brian. This isn't something where people are coming and just saying, we hate Donald so much, we're going to spend our life savings to, spend $3,000 in Washington.
Yeah, and if you're seeing those signs in the physical world, what's happening in the digital world? And then the problem with the digital world is you don't know what's happening to you. People are being attacked in their own homes and they don't even know that it's happening. Your brain's being co-opted with so many of these messages, these images, these narratives that they pull you in. And before you know it, you're making decisions that you don't even want to make. And that's what we're seeing happen to America, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've always said that political correctness is the enemy of free speech. That they have taught us that there are certain things you cannot say. And Brian, for your listeners, I was suspended from Fox News, and there was outrage as a result of it, and I came back. But there are certain things you just can't say. And what I said was a question. But be that as it may, if it can happen to someone like me, it's happening to everyone. You go to work and you say the wrong thing, they say you're hostile. In Atlanta, there was a gentleman that was shot by police. He had taken the taser. He had fought. The narrative was that the police abused him because he was African American. It was just the opposite when the video came out. And his mother-in-law was working in human resources at a place called Prime Equity Loan or something like that in Atlanta. They fired the mother-in-law because she made people feel uncomfortable. And so there is this group think and this thinking that if they're not on our side, then we got to get rid of them and it's okay. And that is the lesson that is being over and over. It's being reinforced daily. And that's frightening. And the Second Amendment, when you have the McCloskeys in Baltimore, after they knocked down these protesters, knocked down a gate to a private area, and the security guard is not there. They walk in. The McCloskeys have licenses for guns. They take their guns out. Looters are saying to them, we're going to live in your house. We're going to kill your dog. You know, you're not going to be here. They were in fear of their lives. They took out their guns. They didn't shoot anybody. They've been prosecuted for the illegal use of their weapons. They've been indicted for that. So you've got the First Amendment free speech under attack willingly. Second Amendment, the guns, they don't want you to use them to protect yourself. And during this pandemic, the United States Supreme Court, Brian, just came down with a decision saying in Las Vegas, we're going to let the casinos stay open. We're going to let the multiplex theaters stay open. You can have as many people as you want at a craps table. You can do whatever you want. But if it's a church, synagogue, or a mosque, no more than 50 people. We don't care how big it is. And Justice Gorsuch, a Trump appointee, to his credit, wrote a stinging dissent saying apparently, casinos have more rights on earth than the Calvary Church. This is a sad state of affairs in America, Brian.
I've been following that case in Baltimore, and it was just shocking to see that they are now being prosecuted. I saw the footage. You were a judge, you were a district attorney. I mean, when you see the law being co-opted like that, how do we get out of this hole? And I guess that's why I come back to maybe your monologue from, your Saturday episode about the next 100 days being so important in the history of this country. Is this our only chance to reelect Donald Trump? Otherwise, does it just keep sliding?
Yes. There isn't much we can do. And, Donald Trump has made a decision, and I made this clear on my show, and I won't bore you. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, has said, he's sending in the stormtroopers, which is a reference, of course, a hateful reference to Nazi Germany. These are simply FBI officers who are protecting in Portland, Oregon, a federal building, which they have an obligation under 40 U.S.C. 1315 to protect. Okay. And, that we're bumping up some of the joint terrorist task forces, joint gun drug task forces, which I did all the time as a DA. Okay. This is perfectly legitimate. What Donald Trump, I believe, has done, okay, and this is just my analysis, is he's kind of held back somewhat because to me, it looks like they're trying to set up a confrontation where they say, Donald Trump is coming in, and he's destroying us and we got to get rid of him. It's all, the script is already written as to how they're going to handle it. So Joe Biden now, who's running for president, who can't complete a thought or a sentence and is always there with his caregiver, his wife, Jill. You never see him without Jill. He's in his bunker in the basement. I call him Bunker Joe. He's not saying anything. As America burns, Brian, this man is sitting in his basement. And when he was asked on a show whether or not, they should move the funds from the police to other areas, he said, yes, absolutely. And then his campaign got a hold of it and they said, oh, no, he doesn't want to defund police. But he already said it. And they're saying, oh, no, that's not what he meant. Well, the guy, if you can't trust him for what he says, what he doesn't say, and he's not fighting the fight for America. Clearly, if Donald Trump does not get reelected, and if he does, it will be an affirmation to him that America, as silent as we may be right now, is desperate for the strong, peaceful nation. This globalist kind of hate that's going on, of burn down the city, burn down the country, with people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. They hate America. These protesters set up an anti-America, F America. Well, you hate this country? Why are you living here? I'm sorry. Well, they're going to change it. I think the silent Americans in 2016 who came out, I think they're even more silent now because they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to end up getting assaulted. You can't wear a MAGA hat in the United States of America without getting assaulted, spit on, or harassed. There was a Marine veteran in Portland who lives within a few blocks of that courthouse, the federal courthouse that they're trying to burn down. He came out and he said something, I don't know, God bless America or Trump or something, the flag. Antifa followed him to his home. There is a man in Kansas, an African-American, and he was African-American, okay? An African-American in Kansas had a sign in front of his home, love Donald Trump, love Donald Trump. Trump is the only way to save, that kind of thing. They shot him in the head, dead. And they think that the reason is politics.
This is just even hard to imagine. I mean, it's stranger than fiction, and it's just, it's a crucial time right now. Tell me more about Biden, because we see this guy who is refusing to debate. And was there ever a time in modern presidential elections where the two candidates didn't debate? And also, we're also hearing he's 15 points ahead in the polls. Is that true as well? Or is that the same polls that predicted Hillary was going to win?
Well, number one, it could be the same polls that predicted Hillary was going to win. Or number two, as I referenced, if you think people were quiet about Donald Trump 4 years ago, they're scared. They're scared
right
as hell right now to say, I support Donald Trump. And I also think that the idea of Joe Biden not debating, they're going to use the pandemic, Brian. They're going to use the pandemic as a reason to not have a debate, to not have any of the rallies. The rallies, and I know the president, the rallies are the energy that he gives the audience, and the rallies, and they give back to him. It's essential. When we see other Americans excited, we get excited. And I've been at those rallies, and I've actually spoken at a rally. Got in trouble for that one too. But I try to stay out of trouble. I really do, Brian. It just comes to me. Anyway.
What did you learn from that, Judge? What did you learn from that trouble you got in, where you got taken off the air, like you said, for asking that question, and then you got brought back, but you're still out there every week, telling it like it is. I mean, how do you walk that line? Do you walk a line, or do you just go for it?
It's a hard line to walk, Brian. I'm not going to say any more than that. I have a job.
Yeah.
Love my job. I have to be able to speak to people. I now have a radio show that I just started. I apologize about the dogs, but we're all in our homes. I have a radio show, and I love my radio show. And I got to get you on my show, and I got to get you back on justice. But let me tell you a little about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a liar. He is a plagiarist. He's an embarrassment. He can't put together a single thought or a concept. Joe Biden plagiarized pretty much his whole professional life, whether it was Neil Kinnock. He absolutely picked up the same speech that Neil Kinnock used about his family and the coal mines and that. And then he lied about, he was fighting with someone and he said, I got a full scholarship to law school. Well, he didn't. And on and on. And there are like 10 places where he's plagiarized while he was in politics. Not as a young kid looking for a job. Kids, they bump up their resumes, their CVs. He also is on the wrong side of most issues. He is, he's all good. Look, he was with the Obama administration. He was sitting in the Oval Office when they were setting up Michael Flynn, a 3-star general, with a fake investigation, and ended up indicting him for perjury, setting him up to lie and to prosecute him. Obama is part of the deep state of Obama, and Biden is part of the deep state. What I'm trying to convince people of is that, number one, he doesn't want to debate Donald Trump. Donald Trump can make mincemeat out of anybody. Joe Biden is afraid of him. He'll use a pandemic. I think it's hysterical when he and his wife come out together and they're wearing their masks. They've been housed together since the pandemic started, and they're wearing masks together when they come out. What is the point of the mask? The point of the mask is to basically kind of dehumanize. It's to, frighten people. You don't know who's behind the mask. It's to give people cover. It's exactly what the anarchists and the protesters need. It strikes fear. There's something going on. There are all kinds of subliminal messages to that mask. And, he's always in that black mask. And as far as I'm concerned, Joe Biden's history, his intellect, and the people that he is supported by, the most leftist progressive, like Bernie Sanders says he's the most progressive Democrat candidate for president. He believes in the Green New Deal, where they want to take planes out of the sky. They want to stop us from eating meat. They said because of the flatulence of the cows and, the emissions, the carbon emissions. Give me a break. But they want to control us, Brian. This is about control. And Americans, in our DNA, this is not in our DNA to be controlled. And, Bubba in Texas and Middle America may not be talking now, but I'm telling you, they're going to be talking in November. The only problem is this. With illegals being given the right to vote, and you say, well, illegals can't vote. There are states that allow them to vote. They give them licenses. What is a license? It is a point of identification within which you can then sign up to vote. You can motor vote and register on the same day. Why did Obama not purge the voter registration rolls for 8 years? So he can leave dead names on those voter registration rolls, so people can vote in the name of the guy who died 8 years ago. There's all kinds of moving pieces here. Joe Biden cannot compare. He's been in the swamp for 40 years and he wants to talk a big game. What has he done? Nothing. He has done nothing. And he says that he supports police. Police all went with Donald Trump. The national organization of all police associations support Donald Trump. And that's big in this time. He supports sanctuary cities. Sorry, I could go on. You got
no, and so what do we need to expect in the next 90 some days? And then what do we need to do? Because obviously they're going to try to avoid the debate. They're going to throw some more things here. Like you said, maybe illegal immigrants trying to register to vote. What is the country, if everyone's listening to you right now and saying, you know what, I think Judge has a good point here. What do we need to do to fight back against this?
I think what Americans need to do is to dig in and recognize how important this is. Because if we lose this election, Brian, America will chart a leftist course like Venezuela, okay? And Bernie Sanders, who is one of the biggest advisors to Joe Biden, used to love Venezuela. He said that's a classic example of socialism. He had it on his website as a senator. Now they're eating zoo animals. Women are giving birth in the street. People need to understand what's coming if Joe Biden gets elected. And that means they have to not only make sure that they vote, they have to make sure that everyone they know votes. And they have to be careful. I really believe that people need to take advantage of the Second Amendment. If police are defunded, you call 911. You know what? It may be that no one's coming. You got to get a gun. You got to learn how to use it. Be prepared to use it. Get a license. Do what you have to do. But you need to protect yourself and your family. It is a different world. But then again, this is America. We were born of a revolution. We have it in our DNA to fight. We have it in our DNA to save this country. But we've got to open our eyes and recognize this isn't just a Black Lives Matter, because there isn't one person in this country that I've met who thought that the killing of George Floyd was acceptable. It was murder. And I'd love to prosecute those cops. And I have prosecuted white cops for killing black men. I've prosecuted them. Okay. So nobody thinks that that was right. But you're taking this in another direction. And I don't know who you are, and I don't know who's funding you. But what I do know is I love this country. You can't take it from us. And the only thing we've got to do is protect ourselves, our family, and stand up to the outrage that's going on. And the voting booth is the way to do it.
How do we combat the Black Lives Matter movement? I mean, it's got these strange fundraisers. You've got Bill de Blasio painting the motto on Fifth Avenue in front of Trump Tower. It seems like it boggles my mind that a politician could be in the streets doing this. How do you fight back against this amorphous movement with these taglines and slogans that are hard to argue against? And like you said, no one disagrees about what happened with George Floyd, and yet it seems to be controlling things. They're pulling down statues, like you said, defunding the police. It's hard to.
It's what they did in Germany. You know, you erase the history. You're telling people, you know, what books are acceptable and not acceptable, what speech is acceptable and not acceptable. You know, you can't, the Black Lives Matter. And there are so many people who believe that the movement reflects the concept that Black Lives Matter. I think everybody knows that Black Lives Matter. Of course they matter. All right. And then you get in trouble when you say all lives matter. Then they want to beat you up if you say that. All right. But the organization itself is very different from that. You know, they say they're a Marxist organization, that they don't believe in the family as the core of the central core of the American culture. They want to change everything. You don't have to have a fight about that. You know, they're not pressing the American agenda. And, you know, if you think that it's okay to paint the streets, if you think that people like Bill de Blasio can come out and say, you know, I want to defund the cops are racist, I want to paint the streets in front of Trump Tower while children are being killed all over in New York City. He doesn't even know the name of them. You know, we've got a 1-year-old who was shot in Brooklyn sitting in a stroller during a picnic during the pandemic. He doesn't know that kid's name. That Black life doesn't matter. The only Black lives that seem to matter are the lives where there is a white person at the other end. And I'm telling you, as sure as I'm talking to you, Brian, the African-American community, the Hispanic community, they are petrified of police leaving their neighborhoods because they're protected by them. And the criminals are emboldened because of people like de Blasio. And he's there for another year and a half. His wife, Charlene McRae, she says it's nirvana without the cops. Yeah, while you have your security, get rid of your security. You know, practice what you preach. Walk the walk, not them.
Yeah, it's hard to watch. And I've had multiple people on, from martial artists to Navy SEALs, talking about how when you take away something like the chokehold, it means that they have to then use worse violence. And you're really hamstringing the police in these situations. And again, that has nothing to do with what happened with George Floyd. This is something that actually hurts the police. And this is in one of the most difficult cities in the world to police, New York City. And then we're seeing the shootings going up. And then you go on to cities like Chicago and Portland.
The interesting thing, Brian, is that the top echelon at the NYPD are saying to me, Jeanine, okay, they passed this resolution of what we can or what we can't do. Train us. We haven't had one man trained, one woman trained. And tell us how to effectuate an arrest. Tell us, help us. Because what we're doing now is we're letting everybody go because we're afraid. You know, we'll call the sergeant, then the sergeant call the captain will call the lieutenant, and the guy's long gone. It's terrible.
Yeah. No, I mean, you look at the statistics, it's like, I think the average officer gets 2 to 4 hours of training, like when they first start, and there's just no regular training when it comes to it. So you mentioned the masks. I'm curious about what you think about the situation right now with COVID, with the testing, with the response to the pandemic. What are you seeing? Because, I mean, now it's in the headlines. The lockdown is real. We're seeing that spread throughout the U.S. What are your thoughts with that? And in addition to the masks, and where are we going? Is there a second wave coming? Because this looks like another serious problem.
It's a very serious problem. And, without knowing what the numbers are, you've got people like the governor in New York, Andrew Cuomo, who insisted on sending infected elderly patients who had COVID back into nursing homes and long-term care facilities. And as a result, the whole nursing home, we've got like 10,000 seniors who died. And then Cuomo, the governor, comes out and says, well, the federal guidelines forced me to do that, which is a lie. They lie. I'm so tired of people lying to me. All right. And that was not the guideline. They weren't forced to do that. Nobody knows what they're doing. All right. The testing is a problem. China ended up, they started hoarding the PPE, the personal protective equipment, and then they started sending out equipment. That equipment was defective. Okay. And I haven't even talked about China unleashing this. And make no mistake, Brian, they shut their country down off from Wuhan. Okay. They knew what was going on. And yet they wouldn't let anyone from Wuhan go into Beijing or the rest of China, but they let people leave Wuhan and go to Europe and the United States. And then they lied about it. And then they said, oh, no, it's not contagious. This all starts with China. And you know what? They gave Donald Trump trouble. He called it the China virus, the Wuhan virus. Well, everybody on the left was calling it the Wuhan virus for the first month until, they woke. And they said, it's not fair. Well, it is what it is. We've got all kinds of viruses, but I don't want to get into that. Right now, Americans are fed up. They're fed up with the leftist governors like Cuomo not opening restaurants up, like Gavin Newsom from California, Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. And when the people in Michigan came out and said, how dare you? How dare you tell us that you're going to keep the bars open, the weed distilleries are open, and yet we can't go to church and we can't buy grass seed, but we can buy marijuana to get high. What's happening, Brian, is this is learned behavior. It is a learned helplessness. And, I started the first domestic violence unit in the nation and many, many moons ago when I was a young prosecutor. I won't even tell you the year. Okay. And battered women learn certain behavior and then they learn to accept it. They're so beat down by the force that controls them. And that's what's happening. That's what we're seeing. So when they came out in Michigan in droves, they said, no more. We want to go to church. We want to paint our houses. We want to put grass seed. We want to go out on a lake. Who the hell are you to tell us we can't go out on a lake, two people in a boat? All right. She talked about doubling down. These power-hungry leftists. Now, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, fast forward. Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, says, hey, no problem. I'm going to shut everything down. But if you're going to protest with Black Lives Matter, no problem. You can protest. How do you make sense of this? You know what he said? His quote is, this is a historic moment. Therefore, you can protest in large crowds, but the rest of you stay home. You can't go to church. You can't go to a funeral. Your friend dies, your mother dies. God forbid. You can't go to a funeral. Bad stuff going on.
Do you think the mayor believes this? Do you think he drank the Kool-Aid, or do you think he sees this as the chance to get reelected?
No, he believes it. Oh, no, he's a believer. This guy's a believer. He is inept, inefficient, incompetent, and plain dumb.
And these governors, these liberal governors, are they intending to sacrifice the economy in order to get rid of Trump and blame him? Yeah. Are they cutting their nose off to spite their face in doing so?
What they're doing. You see, they don't.
How can you do that?
They don't believe it's going to hurt them. And I thought about this forever, and it's the best question. Why? Why would these governors do this? And you say to yourself, well, because they want to.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website, londonreal.tv, or click the link in the description below.